بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد.
We were talking about the situations when you are excused from coming to the congregation. So when these situations are there, you have an excuse. Of course, we are talking about men. Women and children are not obligated to go to the masjid. And we explained in terms of women, if it's just a prayer, it's better for her to pray at home. If there is there is some educational program happening, then she can come and learn her deen. But for the daily prayer, it's better for her to pray at home. In terms of the children, if the children are taught, they were taught how to behave in the masjid, then bringing them is good. Give them a good habit. But if they're going to be running and screaming in the back when people are trying to pray, then that is not good. We don't want that. And we explained this. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, the masajid were not built for this reason, for this purpose, to have those children to make it or turn it into a playground. Of course, if there was no prayer happening and nothing happening inside the masjid, you can bring your children and they can run around without breaking anything. That is fine. But during the time of prayer, people want to have some khushu'. And the little khushu' we have can just evaporate easily. So we have to be careful with that.
Before, this doesn't negate the fact that children should be encouraged to come to the masjid. And I mean, they're the next generation. I know if they're 7 and older, we have to keep an eye on them. But at age 5 or 6, I've known people that have I'll give you an example. Like, for example, there was a kid that used to come to the masjid. I don't think you remember. Maybe you remember. I used to push him to the front row, and now he leads Salat, especially Tarawih. So you have to move the kids forward, or they resent the masjid.
Well, like I said, the kid, even small kids can be taught to behave in the masjid. There is no excuse, really. I am sure if you go and visit somebody at home and you take your kids with you, you will force them to behave. You're not going to let them run around and break everything, obviously. That person will kick you out. So this is the house of Allah. Like I said, kids are welcome if they know how to behave. So yeah, we again are talking about the excuses when the person is not obligated or strongly recommended. We're not going to say it's an obligation. Wajib. Some say actually there is a sin if you don't pray with the congregation without an excuse. So what are these excuses? Number one, obviously, sickness. Any sickness where you cannot come, or if you come, you can cause harm to the musallin, you can transmit the sickness to them or anything like that. So of course, obviously, you get the reward, inshallah, for the intention. Allah knows your intention. If you weren't sick, you would have come to the masjid. So because of the sickness, you get, inshallah, the same reward. The second one, if you're hungry, which means, it's for real. The brother Jawan was asking me about this, but he's always hungry. I don't know if this works for him. If you're hungry and the food is ready, so the food is ready and you're really hungry and the time for the masjid started, even if you go, you're going to be thinking about the food the whole time. You're not going to think about anything else. You're hungry and the food is ready. So in that situation, the hadith marfu' is a little weak, but it's still acceptable. لا صلاة بحضرة الطعام. No prayer when the food is ready. Of course, assuming that you're hungry and you're like really hungry. But if you're, let's say, a little hungry and you can go pray and come back, that's better. But if you're really hungry and going will make you think only about food, then no, eat first. Number 3, the situation of fear. Fear, meaning, God forbid, something happened and you're worried a lot about something. Let's say, for example, somebody lost his wallet and you're really worried, where did it go? And you have some important stuff in it. Or, you are anything that causes you fear. Like, for example, it's again, God forbid, a war zone and people are fighting. You don't need to go to the masjid and pray. You're not going to have any concentration anyway. So the situation of fear, or somebody who had lost something. So the Prophet ﷺ says, من سمع النداء فلم يمنعه من اتباعه عذر. Those who can hear the adhan and they don't have an excuse. So they asked him, what is the excuse? He said, al-khawf أو المرض, fear or sickness. So if you are in any situation of fear, of course, we're talking about real fear, not like you're watching a football game and you are in fear that your favorite team is going to lose. That's not fear, okay? The 4th excuse, dangerous weather. If there is, God forbid, again, like a tornado, hurricane, very severe thunderstorm, snow, sleet, these things that make traveling or driving risky, then you pray at home. The Prophet ﷺ, they will say in the adhan, pray at home. They add this part, صلوا في الرحال, or pray at home. Which whenever, let's say it was extremely cold outside and it's raining, especially at their time, they used to go on camel or walking. So something similar at our time will be an excuse not to pray at the masjid. Next one, I think next one is not applicable at our time, not that much. The imam reads too long and you cannot take it. That is mentioned here. And we mentioned the story of Mu'adh radiallahu anhu. Now, I don't know any imam, and we're talking about imam reads too long. We're not talking about the imam who reads 1 page or 2 pages or 3 pages. We're talking about the imam who reads the whole juz. There is a masjid in Egypt. Somebody told me about him. They start Maghrib and they finish about 10-15 minutes before Isha, which means Maghrib takes about 45 minutes. And Isha takes about 1.5 hours. And that masjid is known. The Musallin who go there, they know what to expect. And one guy was a traveler and he went there and he told me the story and he said, I never went there after that. And this is. So normally if this is your masjid or the masjid near you is like that, you might have an excuse. But like I said, this is rare. The next excuse where you can miss the congregation, if you are traveling and you are worried you might miss your flight, you might miss that you travel, whatever you're traveling. So this is, of course, you are excused. You are afraid, number 7, you have a very sick relative. Very sick relative. May Allah protect our relatives. And you're afraid that he or she might pass away and you're not there to remind him to say la ilaha illallah. So in that situation, it's an excuse. Okay? So these are the excuses where you don't have to be in the congregation. Now, here we have a situation which happens sometimes. Somebody misses the congregation at the masjid. They come after the regular congregation has ended, and they pray a second jama'ah. This happens a lot. Somebody comes after the imam has finished the salah, and they find a few other brothers, and they line up and they pray their own jama'ah. What is the hukum of that? What is the ruling of that? It is allowed, alaykum salam, as long as it does not become a habit, to a point that people know, even if we miss the first congregation, there will be a second one anyway, so we don't care. It should not be a habit. It should be something that happens once in a while. You tried your best, something happened out of control, and you missed the jama'ah, then you do a second one, fine. But not something that you do every day. Then it's not allowed. Because again, you are starting another jama'ah, and some people will start, I like this, so let's go to the second one. That did not happen at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Another important thing, when you enter the masjid and the iqamah has been already called or is being called now, you are not allowed to pray anything else. The Prophet ﷺ says, إِذَا أُقِيمَتِ الصَّلَاةِ فَلَا صَلَاةَ إِلَّا الْمَكْتُوبَةِ. When the iqamah is happening, you don't pray except the salah which is about to be prayed now. So for example, you enter the masjid, Fajr, and you have not done the sunnah before Fajr, which is very important, as we said. The iqamah is being called. If you're going to pray sunnah now, you have to pray it really quick. You're going to have no khushu'. So pray, and then after that you can make it up. What do you do if you're praying the sunnah and the iqamah is called during when you are praying? If you are the first rak'ah, you break your prayer and you join the congregation. If you're in second rak'ah, you finish your prayer and then you join the congregation. Okay, any questions, sister? Yes.
If congregation is going on and you are listening to people join the congregation, not the sunnah.
Yeah. Yeah. Who should be the imam? This is important too. Who should lead the prayer? This is the next chapter. Now, of course, if there is imam ratib means someone that's his job. His job is to lead the prayer, then he leads the prayer. But if he was not there, so the imam ratib, the imam of the masjid is not there, then who should lead the prayer? First, and this is important, the one who reads the Quran correctly, without mistakes, tajweed and everything. What if somebody or two people are there, one of them reads more beautiful, he has like more beautiful voice, and the other one understands the Quran better. He has more knowledge about the meaning of the Quran, but his recitation is not that beautiful. Who leads? The one with the beautiful recitation or the one who has more knowledge of the Quran?
More knowledge of the Quran, I'm assuming.
That's right.
What do you mean more knowledge?
And he understands the Quran more. He knows more about the ayat. No, tajweed, both of them need to know tajweed. Yeah, we're talking about the just beautification of the voice. Tajweed comes first. Yeah. Number two, what if there were two people who are equal in terms of the Quran knowledge and tajweed and everything? Then the one who has more knowledge about the sunnah, the one who knows more sunnah, more ahadith, then he will lead. What if two people were there and they have the same knowledge of Quran, the same knowledge of sunnah? Then the one who became Muslim first, in case that is applicable. And after that, the one who's older. So the age comes at the end. Some people think the age comes first. We have seen a lot of places, they ask someone who's old to lead the prayer, regardless of anything else. But that's not the way it is. It's not about the age. The age comes at the end. If you have like many people, they're good in the recitation, they have good knowledge of the Quran, they have good knowledge of the Sunnah, you don't go with the older until the end. Okay? Now, of course, if you are at home and you are praying congregation, then the host, the owner of the house, leads the prayer. So normally, the owner, by your permission, if there is somebody better than you, you can ask him to lead. But if you don't want him to lead, you lead, even if he can lead better than you. That's by your permission. إلا بإذنه. Okay? And they're saying here the Imam Ratib will lead even if somebody else was more knowledgeable present. Like we said, the Imam of the masjid should lead even if somebody present who is more knowledgeable than him, because that is what Imam Ratib means. Now, who should not lead? Basically, it's haram for that person to be the Imam. It's forbidden, تحرم إمامته. It's forbidden for him to be the Imam. Number one, of course, obviously, woman. A woman cannot lead prayer if there is a man there. If it's all women, it's fine. But if there is a man, a woman cannot lead prayer if there is a man, obviously. Number two, somebody who has najasa, obviously. If he does not know that, so here we have two situations. The Imam, there's something najis, impure on his thawb or on himself or something like that. If he doesn't know, that's okay. Everybody's prayer is inshallah accepted. If he knows, but he doesn't say anything, then his prayer is not accepted, but the prayer of the people behind him is accepted. Because that's not their fault. And they do not know. So that's that. Number three, the one who does not know how to read the Fatiha correctly. A man or a person who does not know how to read the Fatiha correctly should not lead the prayer. And unfortunately, we see that happening many times. Again, you see an older person with a bigger beard, and you think, just because of that, he must be very good, and you ask him to lead, and then he turns out to be unable to pronounce the letters correctly. That is not good. Yeah, if he makes mistakes in the Fatiha, the prayer is not accepted. So you have to repeat it. Number four, for the Imam to be mubtadi', a man of bid'ah, and his bid'ah is known to the people. Someone who does bid'ah, and we're not talking about a disputable thing, different opinions, and we're not going to talk about that. We're talking about something that's clearly a bid'ah. Someone who does clearly a bid'ah, and he's just proud of it. This person should not be leading the prayer. Number five, the Imam or the person should not lead the prayer if he cannot perform the arkan correctly because of a medical situation. Like, for example, somebody who prays on a chair, he cannot do ruku' or sujood or qu'ud or qiyam the correct way, and there is somebody else who is healthier, then he should not lead the prayer. So that's important too. Now here we have a situation, and there is a dispute about it. What if the Imam Ratib, the Imam of the masjid, who is supposed to lead the prayer, was in this medical situation? So what do we do? So he is normally okay, he can pray, but then he had an operation, and now maybe for the next few weeks, he cannot pray, he needs the chair. Does he lead or not? He is Imam Ratib, he should be leading.
He can't lead.
But he cannot do the harakat, the arkan correctly.
He can't lead. He appoints someone else or something like that.
It's disputable Actually, there is two opinions. Some say he can because he is the imam, and some say because he cannot perform correctly during that time, he should ask somebody else to lead. Yani, and wallahu alam regarding that. So the people we mentioned, the categories we mentioned, these are not allowed to lead. They're not supposed to lead the prayer. And if it happens, you have to repeat the prayer again. Again, number one, a woman. Number two, najasa. Number three, somebody who does not know how to read the Fatiha. Number four, someone who does bid'ah, which is again a known bid'ah, clear bid'ah. And number five is the one who cannot perform the arkan because of a medical situation. Now, next is who or which one is we do not recommend for him to lead. Now, what is the difference between this one and the one before? The one before, if he leads, your prayer is incorrect and you have to repeat it. This one, if he leads, the prayer is accepted, but it's not recommended. You get less reward, less good deeds. So the next categories are those who are not recommended for them to lead, and only in the necessary situations they can lead. Number one, the one who makes a lot of mistakes in the Quran. Somebody who makes a lot of mistakes, especially the mistakes that can change the meaning. So that should not be leading. Number two, now this is a funny one, but it's true. If the people don't like him, the people should not hate the imam. Now, if we're talking about this, there has to be, first of all, a lot of people don't like him. Not like 1% doesn't like him, because that's impossible. And they should have a good reason why not to like him. Why you don't like the imam? He's fat. That's not a good reason. Or, I don't like his hairstyle. I don't like his recitation. He doesn't wear a topi. So that's not a reason for you to hate him. There is a reason. People don't like this guy for some reason. They have a good reason. Then he should not lead them. Next, where should the imam stand in relation to the ma'mumin, the people who are praying with him? Of course, we all know the imam should be in the front and the ma'mumin behind him. It is allowed to be next to him, by the way. It's not recommended, but it is allowed. Like the imam is in the middle and the people are next to him. That is allowed too, but it's not recommended. And to be on his sides, that is allowed too. But the best is for the ma'mumin to be behind, and of course for the ladies to be one row behind, inshallah. The situation of being in a race with the imam, which happens too. People stand up before him, or they go to ruku' and sujood before him or with him. If they go before the imam, the salah is not valid. Especially takbirat al-ihram, for example. Like the imam did not say Allahu Akbar yet, and somebody said Allahu Akbar. He started his prayer, and the imam did not start yet. He started the prayer before the imam, so his prayer is not valid. He has to repeat it again. What if some people go with the imam? Like he goes with the ruku', or they go with him. They stand exactly, subhanallah, their time at the same time with the imam 100%. It's not recommended makruh, but the salah is still valid. But if you go before the imam, then your salah is not valid. Who should stand? And this is again, sometimes this can cause an issue. Who should stand behind the imam? So the imam is leading the prayer and people line up behind him. Who should be right behind him? Now the hadith says the people who have more knowledge of the Quran. So in case the imam forgets, he needs help, they can help him. If he forgets a word in the Quran, they will give him the luqma. Or in case something happens to the imam, The imam passes out, the imam gets sick, something happens, somebody will take his place to continue the prayer, so this way the people do not have to break their prayers. But this is important to say. Those people who have knowledge should not be coming late, and then we give them the room and somebody else has been there already. We cannot do that. We cannot displace people. And sometimes what happens, and especially young, we're not going to say that young, but children sometimes, they come excited and they know how to pray, they know how to behave, and they find a good place in the first row. And then somebody comes late, really late, and he just pulls one of them behind and he takes his, that's not the sunnah. You're traumatizing the kid too. The kid is not going to come back again. And this happens a lot. And I actually was in a fight with one of the uncles because of that. He came late. You want to pray in the first row, then come early. He comes late and he finds some kids on the side. They were not even in the middle of the row, on the side. And on the side is fine for the kids. He just pulls one by the arm and he takes his place. That's not allowed. And we started having a fight, and then I told him, bring me one hadith that Prophet Muhammad did that. Actually, the hadith are the opposite. Ibn Abbas was young, and he was scared. He was praying behind the Prophet ﷺ. During the prayer, the Prophet took his hand and he pulled him closer to him. So that's not right. And if there was a gap in the front, you should instruct those who are sitting in the front to close the gap. Like, brother, there is a gap there, please close it. Don't come running from the end of the masjid with the excuse, I have to close the gap or fill in the gap. Of course, it is worse when there is no room and they just push people around, they sit in between and everybody gets squished. That is not fun. All right. Now, it is important to try to get the first row. The Prophet ﷺ says, if people knew the reward they get in the first row, they will do a draw over it, and to that extent. Or istahamu alayh, almost fight over it. So it's a big deal. That's for men. For women, it's the other way around. The last rows get more reward than the first rows because they are again خير صفوف الرجال أولها وشرها آخرها. So for the men, the first rows are better than the behind rows, and the opposite for women. Okay. It's very important again to make sure there are no gaps. This is something we always mention, that the lines should be straight. We said heels on one straight line, and there should be no gaps in between. We always talk about that. And the Prophet ﷺ says, سَوُّوا صُفُوفَكُمْ فَإِنَّ تَسْوِيَةَ الصُّفُوفِ مِنْ تَمَامِ الصَّلَاةِ. When you line up, this is a part of the prayer. And to be correctly lined up is a part of the prayer. It's important. And the Prophet ﷺ used to sometimes, he will walk between the rows and make sure everything is lined up correctly. The Prophet ﷺ himself will walk between the rows and he will make sure everybody's lined up correctly. And one more thing before we end the class, inshallah, for today, and this is again a common mistake. People sometimes line up by themselves in a row. Basically, there is room, but the person does not like people. He prays by himself in the back. His salah is not accepted. If there is a congregational prayer, you have to line up with the people. You cannot stand in the back and follow them like you are praying with them. Of course, there is an exception, Masjid al-Nabawi and Masjid al-Haram, because it's difficult to close in the gap sometimes.